What's up, guys? This is While Supplies Last, the marketing podcast, where we talk about all things business and marketing. I'm Gabby.
And I'm Candace.
And today we have the owner of Peachtree Rose Marketing, Matt Nelson.
What's up, everybody?
And today we're just going to be talking about marketing. We're going to be having like a nice casual conversation. And we're going to grill Matt on marketing.
Marketing and its best practices.
Right on. Cool.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's get into this. I'll start off with, what is your favorite marketing campaign? And this can be throughout the years. And why do you think it was so successful?
I think, so for me, without giving away the client, and some people might know the client by hearing this if they know us, but we've worked with one particular franchise in general. My favorite marketing campaign we did for them was more so related to SEO. So search engine optimization, for those who don't know what SEO is, just allows your website to rank a little bit higher in terms of content, potentially than the competitor, if you focus on things like keywords. So this particular client, as a franchise, they already had a bit of marketing baked into their overhead costs. So kind of, you could say cookie cutter marketing, but it's definitely not localized marketing. There wasn't really an emphasis on search engine optimization in terms of understanding kind of the supply and demand, what folks are looking for on a particular product or service. So that's where we came in, and we kind of started from behind because it's a little bit more difficult if you're dealing with a franchise. You don't want to necessarily do anything that's going to infringe on the franchise agreement or get anybody in any kind of legal trouble. So we created a completely new brand, a new, you could say, website. It's really kind of a series of different landing pages. Blog articles that kind of spoke to particular keywords that were underserved in the market for people looking for that product or service. And then we started seeing organic leads coming in, and that was pretty cool within 6 months. And that's without any paid advertising for that particular part of the campaign. But the cool part about the SEO focused upfront, when we started incorporating paid ads, the quality score was such that it's a little bit higher, easier in terms of a bidding strategy and getting that direct response marketing lever kind of pulled. So yeah, that was my favorite. I think just mainly because we're dealing with a new franchise in a new market that already had established competition, and we saw organic results within 6 months, and we saw where in terms of placement on search engine ranking pages, that particular franchise was much higher than when it started. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Were there any learning curves with this campaign?
I would say for us in particular, because we did end up, incorporating a pay-per-click advertising strategy with that campaign along the way. We focused on SEO first, which is one of our biggest, strong suits. We fire on a bunch of different marketing levers. But that particular one, we learned a lot more about, Google Ads and Google Ads strategy along the way. So that was really fun. Originally starting out, because our core focus, as a company is on startups and small businesses, we didn't necessarily start out with paid advertisement because there is kind of you could call it the long tail strategy in paid advertisement. You're competing against, typically larger corporations with bigger marketing budgets. And that's an easy way to spend a lot of money up front as a small business that could be wasted if it's not spent, the right way. This particular franchise, they had a little bit more in terms of marketing dollars than mainly our ideal clients. So we were able to incorporate a little bit of that. But I would say it taught us quite a bit about, Google Ads and, the verification process for advertiser verification, even conversion tracking. But yeah, it's always a learning curve.
For sure.
Yeah.
I know I asked, but I was working on the campaign also. And it was definitely a big learning curve trying to figure out Google Ads because Google wants very specific things. And sometimes it's hard to narrow down. You feel like you're doing exactly what they're asking. And they're like, nope, you did this, but you didn't do it right.
Yeah.
So we've been working around getting around that and just learning more every day as we go.
But it's been cool in that particular campaign, seeing, the click-through rates, come through a lot higher than just to put it out there, the Google AdWords account or Google Ads account that we created We didn't mirror the previous strategy in terms of Google Ads that the previous company was doing, working with that franchise client. We went a little bit more of a direct route with the focus on specific keywords that were underserved in the market. But it was cool to see the click-through rates much higher than the previous year they had been doing Google Ads. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
I know Gabby likes it because she's an analytics girly.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's my bread and butter. It's what wakes me up in the morning. Like, I get to look at analytics today.
Nothing like a good old spreadsheet and some data. Woo.
Yes. Funny enough, well, with that, like data analytics for like Google Ads, it's fun to look at. And Google Analytics, Google Ads, but Excel spreadsheets are a lot to look at for me.
Oh yeah.
Like it's too much information, I feel.
Yeah, you're a Mac user too, so
That's true.
pin for more Windows folks.
I mean, Mac has something like similar to Excel.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same, just slightly different.
But you're right though. Google Ads and Google Analytics do a really good job of dumbing down, the actual, you could say the footprint of what your analytics look like, and kind of seeing a good picture of what the trends look like, and they really make it easy for even small business owners, who know nothing about data analytics, know nothing about ads or anything, to kind of see what's going on, what the return on investment is. So.
For sure. It's definitely more palatable. It's easier to read.
Yeah.
All right. What would you say are some of your marketing trends, or favorite marketing trends, or that favorite marketing trends that you might suggest for small businesses in 2024?
So 2024, a lot's changed over the past year. Google has implemented a lot of changes, and a lot of that is based around AI. So OpenAI, ChatGPT, and being able to use that is a great tool. There's plenty of studies that show if you're creating a blog article, you could increase your writing skills by 40% positively, better than they were before, which is nice. Especially if you don't have any writing skills, and if you're a small business owner, you're just trying to get some content out there. The problem is the sheer amount of content out there that's kind of just a regurgitated version of what AI is able to drum up that already exists. To combat that, Google implemented the generative search experience, or GSE. So that's when you're plugging in your search terms in Google, and you might get a paid ad or two up front, and then right after that you get this little colorful snippet. And ironically, that's Google using AI to combat AI. So it's using AI to kind of do a quick scrape of the best results for what you're looking for without really attributing it to any given user, domain, platform, or website, which is nice for the end user. And that's really what Google has always been about, the end user, the person doing the search, getting them the best result they're looking for. The problem is, if you're trying to rank number one for any particular keyword, now you're competing against that. So there's that snippet. I suspect over time, depending on the type of search, people will just start to skip that altogether and look for organic results. We've seen, the growing trend that really millennials, Gen Z, most of us skip paid ads altogether because we're looking for the organic results, whereas older generations may not know really the difference and may just click on whatever. But while that's still there, it's still kind of a problem if you're ranking number one. You've got stuff showing up ahead of you. So my biggest thing is, and one of the reasons we built out the podcast studio, I think video content is going to reign supreme. At the end of the day, most people can kind of smell as you're reading an article, hey, this is ChatGPT generated. Doesn't really have a human touch to it. There's no real analysis or opinion, that's formed by a human. But the real differentiator is that video content. It's very hard to replicate an AI video of, like, say, a talking head video or a podcast where you've got people speaking about their opinions or giving their portrayal of an analysis, on any given topic or a niche industry. So being able to captivate the audience, build that parasocial relationship using video on your platforms, I think is going to be the biggest trend in marketing, whether or not it's, incorporating it into social media or even using say, a snippet of a podcast that speaks about, at least the topic speaks about, an article that you've already got in terms of search engine optimization. If you can embed that, YouTube video on an existing blog article on your website, and it does have some sort of a nexus, it relates to that article, you're going to, potentially double your impact in terms of where you're ranking for, where you were wanting to rank for that search engine optimized article. So for those who don't know, YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, and they're owned by their adopted stepmother, Google. So there's a really interesting relationship, and you can SEO or search engine optimize your YouTube video for particular keywords, and you can do the same for your blog articles and stuff like that. But when you're doing both of those and you're incorporating them together, that's where you see a lot of really good results. And I think that'll be the big differentiator that almost evens the playing field for a small business competing against a larger marketing dollar firm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, so as you were talking about that made me think of when I was talking to Gabby. So AI has become like this really big thing, and I know a lot based off of like Google and YouTube, those are top search engines. Well, next comes then TikTok and Instagram are becoming like a thing that everyone's searching for information from. Mm-hmm. Of course, Instagram did their little update, and now they have the Meta AI. It's really frustrating for me getting to like learn how to bypass that. Mm-hmm. I don't really enjoy that feature, mainly because what I want to see on there are the videos. So I'm going on there specifically because I want to see the content that other people are sending out, because to me, videos, I get like more trust. You build more trust through the videos. Like I actually want to see someone using a product or explaining something to me, not just the regurgitation that AI is giving. So I was telling her, like, you type it into the Meta AI and you're just trying to search, and it gives you like a paragraph. And I'm like, no, I want to see video. I want to see the video of it. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
And I'm anxious to see what's the new one? What is it, Threads? I'm anxious to see where that goes, because it's not, it's not video like we're used to seeing in social media. I see people getting on Threads. I'm not on Threads personally, but it's makes me curious. Have y'all even had any experience with Threads at all? Or?
It's pretty much Twitter, but Meta.
But owned by Meta. Yeah.
So like, I think after Elon bought Twitter and turned it into X, people are like, oh, we're going to make our own platform. Because he was either like taking away stuff or like adding stuff in that people didn't add. So they're like, oh, we're just going to make our own version that like people will actually like. I think it took off a lot at first. And now like I'll get, not ads, they're like little snippets on Instagram when you're scrolling of like stuff that people have posted on Threads.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you have to have a Threads account though to be able to look at the whole.
Yeah, and interact.
Okay.
Yeah, and interact.
Well, to your point though, Candace, I think people get on particular platforms that have the portrait style video because they want to see videos. They want to see that human interaction, and I think I think talking about AI generated content, there's almost I think there's a deceptive feel. If you get presented with something that's AI generated, you're almost like, there's like a distaste, in your mouth when you're looking for that kind of content. When you're looking for the human connection and that content, because you can easily build trust with a fellow human, but I feel like that trust falls by the wayside if it's just either text that kind of smells like it's AI generated or even just pictures. So yeah, I say that, but we've used AI generated content on our own stuff as well. But I think when you use it sparingly and you use it in the right places, it's okay.
Yeah. I think they go kind of like hand in hand. Like you need to have both, basically, to kind of get people trusting you. Like you need to have the AI, obviously, because that's where things are going. That's where things are headed. I think that has changed a lot of the way people are doing marketing, especially in the social media platform, because people, some of the stuff is easily recognizable that it's AI, so people aren't trusting it. But I think a lot of times you want to get that information fast, which is why the AI is great, but you also want something that kind of backs it up, something human that you can back up with it. So there's nothing wrong with people using AI. I just think there needs to be, like you said, sparingly, and you need to be incorporating like actual human touches
Yeah.
into your marketing. So people are like, okay, this is a real company. This is a real brand. They're giving real, genuine information, not just spitting stuff out at you, hoping to make sales.
Yeah, no, I agreed 100%. There's, when we write SEO articles, we use a number of different ways to do it. Sometimes we'll actually incorporate, AI in terms of understanding a little bit more about a given topic. But then you could say nerd out. We do our actual research and due diligence to get a little bit more about the topic. And then the difference is really when you add in kind of an opinion on what's going on, and you add really a unique value set that's not often talked about in terms of a topic. That's where you can understand, something is not just generated by a human or has that, checks off all the boxes in terms of content you'd prefer to consume. But that's where you usually see better rankings. So yeah.
Nice.
Marketing.
That's our catchphrase, guys.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Peachtree Rose Marketing, that's kind of our saying. Marketing.
Do it.
Do it.
So how important would you say it is for small businesses to prioritize local SEO efforts in their marketing strategy?
I think it's a big differentiator. I think if you're not incorporating some sort of local marketing strategy, and by that the low hanging fruit there is your Google Business Profile. If you're not creating and fully optimizing your Google Business Profile, formerly Google My Business, I think you're really losing out as a small business. And there's plenty of them out there, whether or not it's a law firm, a bakery, a coffee shop. If you've got a physical location, especially, you have to have a Google Business Profile these days. Otherwise, you could be losing out on half of your potential leads, half of your clients coming in the door. There's probably a great way to debate on whether or not you need, a Google Business Profile first or a website first. We typically say just do both of them at the same time. But you should have, a digital presence that people can go to that's your own platform, in my opinion, like your website. That speaks to the local, segmented audience you're trying to reach. But you should definitely be able to show up on Google Maps as, the biggest market share in local search. Not just so you can show up on the Google Maps, app on that platform, but it's integrated with Google Search. So if you're on your desktop or your laptop computer and you're, say, in San Antonio, Texas, and you're looking for, the best coffee shop near me, you may not be on your iPhone or on your Android using, the Google Maps, app, but you're going to get Google Maps related information based on your IP, address of the computer you're searching with. So super crucial to incorporate, local search marketing as a small business. Now more than ever.
Yes, for sure. Do you ever see like any, reoccurring issues that some people have with like setting up their profile or just things that they aren't doing in general to optimize it better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for small businesses in general, this is more common than not. And it's mainly because, as a small business owner, especially if you're, a startup, you're wearing 1,000 different hats, and you don't necessarily have a marketing team. You don't necessarily have time to research, Texas Workforce Commission, IRS stuff, and then also figure out what each platform needs in terms of being able to get the most out of that platform. So you're just trying to get as much, stuff going at the same time as you can. And that's when, naturally things will fall by the wayside, because when everything's a priority, nothing is a priority, right? So in terms of a Google Business Profile, some of the most common mistakes that we see that will not get you the results that you could get as a small business are, number one, if you don't complete your Google Business Profile, it's not a 100% complete profile. It might still be up and running, but it's not going to compete against, a competitive market on Google Maps or on Google. Secondly, if you don't get verified, and that's, I should probably have put that first, but if you don't follow through with the verification process, you're not going to show up. So you've actually wasted a lot of your own human capital trying to put effort into creating a profile. But if you don't follow through with verifying it, not going to get any results. And then probably the third, biggest thing is trying to be, the master of everything in terms of a category. You could be a law firm, and you can have several different things that you're offering as a service, and then you can have core services that are maybe your top 3. But if you're trying to say that you're the best at, these top 20, what's going to diminish the top 3 that you could rank for, and probably perform better with and probably get better reviews for. So I would say, verifying your profile, completing your profile, and then making sure that you take accountability as a business. What are you best at, and what do you want to market yourself for? And really just focus on those categories when you're creating your profile. Yeah.
Nice. Do you see, I know I've heard stories of like small businesses that operate out of their house and they use their home address for their Google business profile.
Yeah, it happens all the
Yes.
time.
And then I know it causes a problem because people are showing up to their house or they're calling their house like, hey, is this business like XYZ?
Yeah, so it's super tempting, right? Because the alternative for, at least most people think the alternative when you're a startup or a small business is ponying up on, a 3-year lease that costs thousands of dollars, and now you're roped into actually having an office space or, a commercial building, brick and mortar. Now there's plenty of opportunities out there, like creating a virtual office, getting, flexed office space or using, we operate out of a co-working space. When we started out, we just had a dedicated desk. Actually, before that, we had, a virtual office. We could get and accept mail here without our presence being here. You can show up in different cities that way, and you can kind of penetrate new markets as well by using a virtual office. But you also don't have people showing up at your door or in your driveway, when you're trying to have family time with your kids. So that's another benefit. But co-working space in general, we always recommend, depending on, the business type. I've actually seen, in a different market in Dallas, there's a co-working space. They're going to have a bakery in the co-working space, which was super new. I didn't know you could do that. They're butted up right against, suburban, Dallas. And this co-working space is also right next to an airport. But there is a baker who's been operating out of their home. They got all the right licenses and all that good stuff. But they needed space where they could actually send clients to go pick up stuff. So they're using a private office out of a co-working space. But the co-working in general, I think the biggest benefit for a small business is the flexible solutions. And depending on the type of co-working space, them being able to work with you and understanding what a Google business profile needs and what really checks the box in terms of really Google's policy. In, I believe it was November 2021, Google changed their policy where you basically have to be staffed by, business staff, not co-working staff during normal business hours, and you have to have signage representative of your business. There's some co-working spaces out there where, number one, they don't allow signage at all. They may not have numbers on the actual private offices, or they might try and sell somebody on a virtual-only membership, which technically is against Google's policy. You could logistically, potentially show up, in a Google business profile with just a virtual office address, but it is against Google policy. You do have to have signage and all the other levers checked off. So, yeah.
Nice.
So you talked about websites and Google business profiles not necessarily having to do them at separate times. And we talked about optimizing Google business profiles, but how do small businesses optimize their websites as well? And what are like some of the common mistakes that you've seen small businesses do when they're trying to optimize their websites?
Sure. So again, most small businesses or small business owners wearing multiple hats, very tempting to just get into the drag and drop website builder game and just try and go build your own website or use a template, drag and drop website builder. I'm talking about, Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, to name a few. And those are fine. Sometimes those are free solutions. Usually, if a product or service is free, you are the product or service, right? Or you're in a sales funnel. So I think it's okay to start out with that. Just know that at some point you're going to have to graduate your business for the sake of, number one, branding. If you want to have, a more professional brand, number one, a lot of those drag and drop website builders, they do not have a lot of compatible solutions on mobile. And we've seen, trending. Most folks are looking for stuff online using their mobile device, not as much on, desktop and laptop computers anymore. So if you're going to niche yourself out in terms of good branding for your business, you might want to look into, getting a good hosting account, like say GoDaddy, Bluehost, HostGator. There's thousands of different, reputable, even US-based hosting companies to go with, and then building your website off of WordPress. WordPress as a content management system powers most websites in the world in terms of market share. But the beauty of using WordPress as a content management system, once you have a website built out, and you can use drag and drop website builder plugins on WordPress to give you the same, capability. Once you have that website built out, you can actually download most of the files and you can upload them to a different host if you ever had to change hosting accounts. None of the drag and drop website builders allow you to export content so you can upload it to their competitor. So that's kind of a big differentiator and an easy mistake that most small business owners make in just trying to press the easy button and not think long-term, what is that going to look like? Because at some point, they'll either be roped into having to pay a certain amount, and then they're kind of painting themselves in a corner if they ever want to do anything with that content after they've spent all this time and human capital building a website. That's one big part. And then the other biggest part is not focusing on what your website's supposed to do. A lot of folks will focus on what's flashy and what looks good, or what they think looks good, or even just colors. And
their favorite colors are.
What their favorite colors are, which is even worse when you don't think about what your users' potential favorite colors are, or what speaks to the brand. But even just color scheme in general, not as important as the top 3 things your website needs to do. It should say what you are and what you do, who you do it for, and how they can actually get that result. And that's the biggest piece. A lot of folks will focus on flashy, what looks good, and the end user might visit a website for less than 3 seconds because they can't figure out what are they trying to sell me. And that's the biggest problem, I think, especially with small businesses, because they don't know exactly what to put on a website, but they've seen what a lot of websites will put out there, and they'll try and match that. And number one, when you're trying to match a bunch of things that already exist, you're not differentiating yourself, but you're not tapping into the human psychology of why someone actually wants to visit a website in the first place. And usually people want to visit a website for a business if they're actively trying to, get a solution to their problem. So, yeah.
Looking at the user experience as well, like how they navigate the website is like, you're not even thinking about that, which are things that turn people off of your website. I know there's been several times, like, I'm into graphic design and the way things look, so sometimes I will go to a website and be like, nope. Like, I can't deal with this. Like, I have no clue how to get to the information I'm looking for, those kinds of things. And it's because they haven't put any thought into it when they were creating the website. So
user experience design, and there's degrees out there now just about user experience design. And it's not even necessarily web design. It's about the user experience. But when you talk about web design and you talk about search engine optimization, how they kind of play a part in each other, you were talking about if you can't navigate a website, what's the first thing you do when you're getting that kind of frustration as a user? You bounce.
Yeah.
So Google created the term, bounce rate, and that's when somebody bounces off of a website, pretty quick. So the higher the bounce rate, the less time they are engaging with your website. Google tracks all of that. So when they're sending people or linking people to your site, and they see that they're not sticking around, well, they're going to devalue your ranking in search engine optimization and your search engine ranking pages. So it's a big deal, user experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with branding. I know when businesses are trying to emulate someone else, they don't think about the idea that was going into that other company. So they chose this color for a specific reason, it means a certain thing, or they chose this font because it makes somebody feel a certain way when they're reading it.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that I feel like people don't always think about that are actually very important.
Yeah. Cool colors versus warm colors. And just so everybody knows, I didn't know anything about any of this until, Gabby and Candace came along, because I knew nothing about, color scheme strategy and stuff like that. But I've learned a lot by having, subject matter experts in different fields on the team. Yeah, like Missions Massage, a client of ours we worked with. It's a massage studio in a co-working space. That color scheme is based off of cooler colors, stuff that actually gets people to kind of feel soothed, that kind of thing, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well done.
There's a psychology behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about some social media. Obviously, we've talked about how video is very important. Short form video, which is turning into long form at this point, now that they're allowing longer videos on everything. What do you think small businesses can do to compete in that space as far as like influencer marketing and user-generated content?
Yeah, so I think, specific to social media, small businesses might be inclined to go find what they perceive as an influencer to try and help, peddle their brand or give them an honorable mention or do some sort of a JV team thing together and even pay into that. Before doing that, I do want to say, do your research. Make sure, number one, are the, thousands of followers that they have, are they actual engaging humans in that marketplace? Did this influencer move from a different city and now they're in your city? And all of their followers are in San Diego, and now you're in San Antonio, and they're pretty much irrelevant to your brand as a local coffee shop. And on the bots piece, right? Every platform that's a social media platform, doesn't matter if you're, former Twitter, now X, if you're TikTok, Instagram, every platform has bots, right? Or fake profiles that are created by, computers for different reasons, sometimes nefarious, right? And it's impossible to say, even if it's a legitimate, influencer, it's impossible to say there's no bots on that follow this influencer. There probably are. And typically the more popular an account, the more attractive it is, to be followed by a bunch of bots. So number one, don't get too sold on the number of followers, an influencer has. I would say when you're trying to work with an influencer, micro-influencer or a bigger influencer, focus more on what are they an influencer of and how engaging is their content to the audience that you want to inherit. If you're a local plumber and you're working, you're hoping to work with an influencer who sells or, markets, designer handbags, probably not the best fit, right? In terms of, target audience. So do a little bit of due diligence there. But yeah, that's the biggest part. In terms of user-generated content, I think it's super powerful because there's a testimonial play to be had. But that also, outside of the social media realm, you can kind of inherit that into your Google business profile strategy as well. If, without soliciting for positive reviews, which is against, Google policy, by the way, there's a way to do it, though, without asking for a 5-star review. And you might see, a lot of the really nice restaurants that have this one corner that is very marketable in terms of, a bunch of selfies and it's just selfie bait. That's a way of them getting user-generated content. You typically rank better the more times you've got, clients who are giving you a 5-star review, but they're also incorporating, pictures of your business or videos of your business. That's user-generated content. That tells Google, a very strong signal that people are getting behind your brand. As they're doing that, you're really missing out if you don't follow up with them, not just on platform, on your Google business profile. If someone gives you a 5-star review and you don't say thank you to them on there, number one, people see that and they're like, okay, so they don't really care. And then number two, Google sees that. And when that happens, you're less engaging with your audience. But you're missing out, even after you follow up with them on platform, by not saying, if they're a paying client, by looking them up and giving them, a private message and saying, really appreciate your review. Would you mind if we just give you a phone call to talk about it? And you can always incentivize that too, right? But what you want to do in that phone call is captivate them and say, hey, we really appreciate your review. Can you tell us about your experience? Get a little bit more of the actual nuts and bolts of how they felt interacting with your brand. And then you ask them, hey, would you mind if we create a testimonial out of that and put it on our website? Cool. I'll send you exactly what we talked about and kind of what that looks like. Can we put your face on there and your name? And sometimes, people will really, respond positively with that. for some people, that's going to be the closest they come to having, being famous, right? Obviously, get a media release, folks, if you're going to do that. So your content, can last forever, because stuff does happen. People change their minds. But that is a form of user-generated content that really speaks well for a brand and lives beyond just that one interaction that they had with your brand.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't realize that part of what strategy and part of like social media marketing and stuff is the engagement, not just like who's engaging with you, but you also engaging with them. So listening and monitoring your social medias, like Instagram and all of those platforms, they do take into account like how long does it take for you to get back to someone when they DM you. Like those things play a huge part in, how you're doing on your social medias. So sometimes that's why it does come in handy to have, someone on your team that's helping you with marketing, like monitoring your sites and stuff like that so they can keep up with that, which I know is sometimes hard for small businesses, but if that's the platforms or the marketing angle that you're going for, it's pretty important that you have someone actually interacting with your followers as well.
Yeah, I think there's a surface level, part of just having a profile and having content out there, which is kind of a social proof thing. Oh, yeah, it's a legitimate business, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the engagement part that you kind of spoke about. And I think, if you're executing on a social media strategy, and, a year into that, if you're not feeling like, man, this is becoming a job and someone needs to do this because I need to focus on my business, then you're probably not doing it right, number one. And there's a lot of benefit in being able to incorporate that engagement strategy and comments in terms of you showing up in new profiles, because they'll serve up content from profiles based on how engaged people are who are related to those potential new leads. So yeah.
Nice. So I know a lot of small businesses, as they're like putting in the work, they're doing their marketing, they make sure all their stuff is optimized, and they want to know like their return that they're getting. They want to see their return on an investment. How would you say they should measure that, or what's the best way for them to measure that?
So I think it depends on the business, depends on the industry, and kind of what their main metric is for generating revenue, right? Whether or not it's cookies sold or drinks served, but understanding and attributing that to the marketing can be a little tricky. So conversion tracking, if you're using direct response marketing like Google Ads, and understanding how that works, or even just really nerding out into the data analytics of stuff like Google Analytics and seeing, what the behavior flow of web traffic does. Are they actually getting to the contact form? Are they following your calls to action? Are they calling? Those are things to really look out for. Click-through rates for things like Google Ads. Cost per conversion is, basically the ratio. You could really nerd out when it comes to, mathematical formulas based on, tracking your ROI. At the end of the day, are you generating more revenue having done, whatever the marketing campaign or strategy is? Doing A/B testing, maybe doing an alternate form of the same type of campaign and seeing which one performs better in terms of, traffic, if it's a website, or actual leads in the door or phone calls. And then, out of those two, if B is working better, well, then you double up on B and you go from there. If you're doing a direct mail campaign, not using static QR codes, but incorporating a dynamic QR code, strategy into that, and actually seeing, how many more people in this zip code are actually engaging with, your mail piece versus this zip code or this targeted audience, and doing A/B testing that way. There's all different strategies you can do on different, marketing campaigns and different industries, which is really what we enjoy doing, as marketers, and experimenting with that and getting results out of that. So, yeah.
I didn't realize. So I was telling Gabby, like, oh, I like going on to like the analytics after I do posts and stuff and seeing like, well, what worked, how much engagement, like even people's stories, like you can see click-through rate, if someone, like how long they watched a reel, all that other stuff. And I was like, yeah, I get really excited. Like, when one's doing really well, it shows you like what you should be doing, what you could be doing more of. Definitely stuff that you have that has worked in the past. Like if you're kind of in a slump, like, well, I know like this is something that my audience really enjoys. And so you kind of like start incorporating more of that into what you're doing.
Yep.
And then she was like, see, you're getting into analytics. And I was like, a little bit.
Gotcha.
Because she always makes fun of me. She's like, Gabby's the analytics person. Like, this stuff isn't fun. And then here she is on the back end on socials.
I feel like she's more analytics girly and I'm more like creative
But
marketing girly.
I guarantee you, whether or not you're creative or not, and if you're a small business owner who's not into marketing or not, like once you put something out there and then you see that it's engaging and then you can see some analytics behind it, you'll want to nerd out on analytics a lot more.
Yeah.
It makes it fun, keeps you vested. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes people are intimidated by looking at the analytics, but I feel like for socials, especially in the back end, like it's very straightforward. Yeah, like it's easy to read through.
Yes, I think most of the social media platforms versions of analytics, they keep it super user friendly, knowing that the vast majority of their audience, even business owners especially, are not necessarily big data analytics people. So you have to keep it simple in terms of the presentation value, and make it easy to kind of track ROI and see how engaging people are.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially when some of those metrics could be kind of viewed as like superficial, but still at the same time, like I enjoy seeing like the growth or seeing like how well something is doing, even if it may not have done as great. It still provides me with insight about like who's watching, when should they be like looking at my stuff, and it just helps me get better and better with time. So I know even for like some small business owners out there, if they were tracking like their progress monthly, they would be able to see like, okay, my audience enjoys memes or my audience prefers more like carousel content.
Yeah.
So then they could start going in that direction. That would really assist them.
Yeah, and I think we typically start out with understanding, a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats for any business when we're doing, any type of marketing for them. From there, we try and understand the buyer persona, or what, each particular segmented audience that would do business with that brand, what they're going to be, more prone to engage with. And we do that for a reason. And that's mainly so we can get ahead of that learning curve of, the 6 to 12 months it might take for a small business to understand how is that audience going to engage with them and how reactive are they going to be with their content. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know with social media, the analytics are more straightforward with figuring out like user behavior and what the consumer wants. What do you think is a good way to, I guess, measure consumer behavior when you're looking at like Google Analytics and it's just straight numbers for the most part?
Yeah, so Google Analytics can be more daunting for folks than, things like social media, which you kind of touched on. But as you get into it, there's a lot you can do with those numbers. And Google does a really good job of painting a visual picture of what that looks like. My favorite thing to kind of nerd out on is looking at user behavior from the flow perspective. Once they hit your homepage, what do they do from there? Are they going to your blog articles? Are they going to your About Us or Teams page? Are they going to, any type of product or service? Which one are they hanging around more? Are they adding things to a shopping cart? Are they clicking on a contact form, calling you? Is it paid versus organic? If you're incorporating a pay-per-click, bidding strategy like Google Ads, how much of those people are coming to your page and then leaving your homepage? Or how many of them are actually engaging with your content versus organically engaging with your content? And if you've got a lot of people coming to, your website, as shown by Google Analytics, and they're paid traffic, but they're not hanging around, well, that says that your ads are good because you're selling the click, but your content on your website could use some TLC, right? So you've got to be able to sell the product or service on your website, but sell the click and the ad. So it's really two different things. So we're very picky about who we're doing, paid advertising with in terms of direct response marketing, which is like your direct mail campaigns or your pay-per-click ad campaigns, even email marketing, because they really need to have the fundamentals down. They need to have the website that actually sells the prospect after they get there. Otherwise, they're just wasting their money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks.
What is one piece of marketing advice you would give a startup for generating leads?
So a startup in particular, usually pretty strapped for cash, right?
Yeah.
So we love working with this, right? We love working with, and sounds counterintuitive. Why would you work with, a potential buyer who doesn't necessarily have money to pay you for a product or service? We like working with startups and small businesses who are trying to build, the cash flow to be able to support continued marketing services. Number one, it's fun. Number two, they're usually preyed upon by marketing, smash and grab companies if they've done marketing with them, or marketing agencies won't touch them because they feel like that's, most small businesses will go out of business. That's just a statistic. Why try and do business with them? Unfortunately, if you're a marketing company that's just doing, hey, buy this 6-month package and we'll guarantee you results, but they don't really guarantee results, you're just contributing to the failure of small businesses. But we like working with startups because there's an easy way to say, hey, focus on these small things first, generate some revenue. Usually that builds great rapport with our clients, and we're able to work with them on some more solid long-term marketing plans. For startups who have no money, don't try and buy into marketing. And again, that sounds like, we shouldn't be saying that as a marketing company. What you should be doing is going to all the free networking events that you can. And I mean networking, by the way, folks, not socializing. There's two different things, right? You can network, or you can just go, get some free cocktails. Ideally both. But as you're out there networking, try and find out who could ever potentially do business with you, or who would be potentially an ally of your brand, and try and figure out how to do something with them. If you're starting out and you're not generating any revenue yet and you don't have anybody giving you reviews, best thing you can do is do a product or give a product or do a service for free in exchange for feedback to try and fine-tune your service, because most businesses are commodities at best, and they're doing the very basic stuff and hoping to get, amazing reviews. But they could just be fine-tuning it and being the best, or getting a lot better at what they're providing the end user. So getting that feedback up front and figuring out, hey, is this really a business I want to be in, number one? Or am I more prone to being successful on a different business venture? From there, getting those positive reviews and building it up from there, and getting that traction. Number one, it's going to fuel you as a business owner emotionally, to be able to say, hey, that person actually really appreciated what we were able to do. I want to do that again. So that's going to motivate you, because there's plenty of times in the early days as a startup, you will just want to give up. So the biggest thing, again, I suggest is going out there, networking, getting to know people, because it doesn't cost you any money to put your face in front of somebody in the physical form. And then sometimes it does. Maybe it's $5 to go to a networking event. It might be worth it. Is everybody at that networking event going to be, a niche audience that's going to, speak with your product or service? Maybe they're looking for what you've got. Or is it just, and I'm sorry for those of you out there listening, is it just a bunch of people in insurance trying to sell you insurance? And that's okay too. You might need their service later, or maybe you're in insurance. But yeah.
Yeah, that might be the cheapest way to go. It's word of mouth and networking.
I think that's the crucial starting point most small businesses don't even think about sometimes, unfortunately. They're thinking, hey, I need to get all of the social media profiles out there. I need to do that. I need to do all of these things at once. I need to get the website out there. Going out and meeting people is really the critical first step. Obviously don't give away everything, in terms of your proprietary stuff and your passion that you're going to do, or unique value proposition necessarily. But putting yourself out there and saying, I'm super passionate about this and we're going to solve this problem. That's enough to get people to build rapport with you and to potentially get clients as well as people who really want to interact with your brand. They may not ever be a client of yours, but they could definitely be a good referral partner. Yeah.
Definitely.
Sure. Well, I think we've come to the end of our time here. Matt, thank you for coming on and talking to us about marketing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah, thanks for the invite.
The
Of
time
course.
just flew. I didn't even realize we were close to the end.
Yeah, it did. We had a good conversation.
Yes.
Is there anything that you would like to leave with the people? Any marketing tidbits?
The people.
The people.
No, marketing, do it.
You heard it here first, folks. Do it. But all right, once again, this is While Supplies Last, the marketing podcast. I'm Gabby.
And I'm Candace.
And I'm Matt.
All right, see y'all next time.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.